So here we are, Heart Talk number 6 with Martin Rutte, no less than making heaven real in your family. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Suzanne.
So happy to have you here.
So happy to be with you.
Yeah, it's been a while. And I want you to introduce yourself in a minute, but the reason why I just wanted to invite you was that you are the direct inspiration to this children's universe, actually, because it was after meeting you in Nice, I think in 15 or 16, we're not sure, that I got so inspired by what you were talking about, your project Heaven on Earth, that I just had an inspiration as to how can we apply this in a universe for children. And then in a couple of years, well, here we are having a universe for children. And I'm just so happy that you were there to cross my path. And I want to talk to you about how we can make heaven real in your family, because you have good questions that people could ask themselves. But before jumping into that, please just shortly introduce yourself so that people will know who you are and what you've done. And yeah, this is in English because Martin hasn't yet learned Danish. So
I think my only Danish, what's thank you? Tak, right?
Tak, yeah, thank you.
That's the extent of my Danish.
Yeah, but it's so good to have you here, Martin. So
thank you.
Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what's your mission in this life, just for people to know.
Good. So hello, everybody. And are we only speaking to people in Denmark or other countries as well?
In Denmark, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
But you never know, because I have been posting this in more groups where people also from other countries. So we never know.
So hello to everyone, those in Denmark especially. Thank you for this, Suzanne. My background, so I'm a management consultant. I worked for many years, both the United States and Canada. I'm a dual citizen, born and raised in Canada. And then in 2010, I think we got our American citizenship. And I was always interested in the issue of vision. What's my vision? What's your vision? What's our vision? And so I've done a lot of consulting on that with major clients in the US, Sony Pictures, Southern California Edison, Marion Merrill Dow Consumer Pharmaceuticals. I've spoke 4 times to the Harvard Business School on vision. I'm co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul at Work, a co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul at Work, which was a New York Times business bestseller. I think we're over 1.1 million copies. And I know, amazing, just amazing numbers. In 15 languages. I don't know if we're in Danish, actually. Do you know that? We don't, okay.
I know the English title, yeah.
Yeah, Chicken Soup for the Soul at Work. So I was doing a talk at a conference once on spirituality and work. I did a lot of work on spirituality and work. And I was thinking, if every business in the world is spiritual, is that what you want? And I said, no, because business is the temporal power that has, a lot of power in the world today. If we could transform business, we could transform the world. And then this thought popped into my mind, oh, you mean, no, sorry, we could transform the world. And then the thought popped into my mind, oh, you mean heaven on earth. And I could remember Suzanne sitting there thinking, oh my God, you can't say heaven on earth. People will think you're nuts. It's impossible. We've never done it. All the usual skepticism and denial. But as I thought more about it, I thought, well, wait a minute, why not? We can talk about hell on earth. The pandemic, the environmental issue, the threat of, God forbid, of nuclear weapons, the refugees, the economic turmoil, that all those major problems in the world, we can talk about those ad infinitum. Why can't we talk about the kind of life and relationships and work and nation and world that we want? And if we had a magic wand, wouldn't that be heaven on earth? And so I began to be very intrigued by that question. And I didn't even know what I was talking about. I didn't have a definition of heaven on earth. So what I began to do is I began to go around to people saying, what's heaven on earth for you? What's heaven on earth for you? What's heaven on earth? Just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And from that inquiry, 3 questions began to distill out, to crystallize out. And I would love you, the listener watcher right now, to answer each of these questions. Or I'll ask you, you'll be my guinea pig, Suzanne. I didn't ask you this before, but I think.
Yeah, I'll do my very best.
Okay.
Yeah.
So question number 1, recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. Recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. What was going on?
This might be X-rated, but the first thing that popped in was making love to my boyfriend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second question, imagine you have a magic wand, and with it you can have heaven on earth just by waving it. What's heaven on earth for you?
Heaven on earth for me is where every person is guided from within. Because I think when people are guided from within, they don't export their desperation to other people. So it would be a peaceful and harmonic coexistence that we would have, and we would come from a place of abundance and trust instead of lack and fear. And we would come from a place of feeling one instead of feeling separated. So to me, that's heaven on earth.
All right, then the third question, what simple, easy, concrete step will you take in the next 24 hours to begin to make that happen? What simple, easy, concrete step will you take in the next 24 hours to begin making that happen?
Having done this as my way of living, I do it every day, and I'm having this interview with you right now to also, further expand this way of thinking. But I will also write a newsletter to my newsletter list with this inspirational talk, and also inviting people to stepping more into their sovereignty. So yeah, 2 things. Yeah.
So let's go through the questions. Question 1, recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. And I want to talk about what you did and what you didn't do. What you did is you answered the question, making love with my boyfriend. What you did not do, Susanna, what hardly anybody does, is you didn't ask me, Martin, what do you mean by heaven on earth? Which I find fascinating. I never defined what I meant by heaven on earth. I never told you this is heaven on earth. I know you don't. I'm going to shove this down your throat. No. I asked, recall a time, and boom, you instantly knew. And it's because you have a place inside called an already knowing. You know what heaven on earth is, and you act, you answer from there. And then the second question, here's a magic wand. With it, you can have heaven on earth. The reason I use the analogy or the metaphor of a magic wand is it removes the necessity of you having to know how you're going to do it. So if I don't have to know how to do it, because that's the magic wand's job, well, let me tell you what heaven on earth is. And you went right into it so clearly, so precisely. And that happens every time. When I do an online seminar, or pre-COVID, when I did a seminar with 200-300 people, people just answer. We know what heaven on earth, you know what heaven on earth is. And then the third question, what simple, easy, concrete step will you take in the next 24 hours? I don't want to just leave it as a good idea, which is wonderful. I want to actually have you engage in a simple, easy, concrete way to move that forward now, so that your soul's longing, your divine soul's longing for what heaven on earth is, begins to be made real day after day after day after day. So those are the 3 questions, and those get you in touch with A, you have had an experience of heaven on earth. B, you do know what heaven on earth is. And C, you could take a tiny little step and move that forward.
Yeah. And I love those questions. And I have guided you through the passion test at one point, and it's very much aligned with those steps in the passion test, right? Where you get through intention, attention, and no tension. So intention, what do you want? Instead of what don't you want, what do you want? And attention, so, which steps are you going to take to move yourself further to this? And then no tension is your magic wand, where you let go of any attachment on figuring out, how am I going to do this? So it's exactly the same recipe on how to manifest.
I love that word. I've never heard that word. It's a recipe. Yes.
It is a recipe.
It's a recipe. That's a beautiful way to say it. And I, not only I want more and more and more, thousands of people are doing this around the world. Mm. If you look, how do you say heaven on earth in Danish?
Himlen på jorden.
Himlen på jorden. If you put that in quote marks on Google for 2020, and then do the same thing for 2021, you'll notice the big jump in all languages. It's jumping because it's coming in. People are saying this current story of humanity with the pandemic, with the environment, with nuclear weapons, with all the existential collective threats to all of humanity, the story's not working. So at a larger level, what this is about is we are co-creating the new story of what it means to be a human and what it means to be humanity. The new story of what it means to be a human and what it means to be humanity. That's, and you use the word, which I love, sovereignty. You begin to exercise your sovereignty to have the kind of life and work and nation and world that your soul deeply longs for.
Yeah. And when you're talking about all of that and the reason why these numbers are racing through the roof, I think it's just like the photographer, at least in the old days, that developed the pictures from the negatives in the dark, right? I think as humanity, we are being, developed from the dark that we experience right now. So the contrast is actually step 0 to any manifesting process, that you need to know at a deep, deep level what you don't want in order for you to, 180, what do I want?
Lovely.
So I think it's
that's a lovely way to say it. Yeah. There is a blessing. I mean, certainly there's a lot of suffering and pain with COVID, but there is a blessing underneath, if you could look at it, which is exactly what you're saying. We're looking at what kind of world do we now want? And let's begin simply. That's a very important word, simple. What simple, easy, concrete step will you take to begin to make this happen by your definition? So one woman smiles at 2 people a day. One woman has taken on all of Austria. For each of them, it's simple. Yeah.
And how do you see, because now we are addressing, parents for children that have, I think most of them read already, maybe this children's book on actually how to become sovereign. That's the purpose of this book, to help children and their parents to become sovereign. So how do you see the questions that you offer? How do you see those applied in families to create or make heaven real in families?
It's a beautiful thought. So imagine that your home, your family, is actually a place of heaven on earth. One way you could do that is by asking each member the 3 questions. I mean, assuming the children are old enough, but just very simply. And the questions are on projectheavenonearth.com. Recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. What is heaven on earth for you? Here's a magic wand, and with it you can have heaven on earth. What's heaven on earth for you? And what simple, easy, concrete step will you take in the next 24 hours to have more of that? And I see the father, the mother, the parents asking, grandparents, asking everybody at the table one at a time each of those questions, and really listening deeply to what each person says in terms of what heaven on earth is and what they're going to do about it. So in my book, a little Project Heaven on Earth, there are different gateways. So if one of your family members says something and you don't agree with this, for example, I remember doing a conference once, and this woman stood up and said, the way you create heaven on earth is with love. The more love you have, the more heaven on earth. And then after her, this guy stands up. No, what are you talking about? No, we have hunger in the world. We have to get rid of hunger. When you end hunger, you'll have heaven on earth. And then they start arguing with each other. And I said, no, stop. excuse me. For her, our job is to help her create more love in the world. For him, our job is to help create the end of hunger. Mm-hmm. So whatever the person's answer is in terms of what heaven on earth is for them, even if you don't think that's quite, quote, the right answer, assuming nobody's going to harm anybody, but your job is to support them, not to argue that that's not the right way to do heaven on earth. That's the worst thing you can do, because then you just get into a fight. Well, that's ridiculous. You want to empower each person in the family to discover what heaven on earth is, and to begin to take a step in the next 24 hours, and then to take more and more and more and more steps, so that you begin to create this momentum in the family. If you have a meal every week or twice a week, you can ask the 3 questions, or ask, what have you done this week to help move heaven on earth forward? Yeah. My wife and I have this 7 o'clock affirmation. I'll send it to you. You can put a link on it. And the questions we ask each other, the affirmation is, with love and thanks, we are experiencing heaven on, we are creating heaven on earth. I'm so used to doing it at 7 o'clock. It's not 7 o'clock. With love and thanks, we are experiencing heaven on earth. We are creating heaven on earth, and we are co-creating heaven on earth. With love and thanks, we are experiencing heaven on earth. We are creating heaven on earth, and we are co-creating heaven on earth. And we have an alarm. I have an alarm on my clock, on my iPhone. Every day at 7 o'clock, it goes off. And depending where we are, obviously, if it's appropriate or not, but generally we'll stop, or we might do a little later, the same affirmations. And so it goes in and goes in. What we're doing is we're normalizing the creation, the co-creation of heaven on earth. You can also, on my website, projectheavenonearth.com, there's the 3 questions. You can also sign up for a free course and a free blog. Every week you'll get a blog, which the more you hear the phrase heaven on earth, the more normal it becomes for you. Yeah. It moves in essence from, and as people have said this a lot to me, it moves from, that's a stupid idea, that's impossible, to, oh, well, that's interesting, to, well, maybe it's possible, to, maybe there's some potential here, to, we're actually doing it.
Yeah. And knowing the law of attraction, that is very powerful to, work on your subconsciousness, so that statement gets real and is a program that you are, sending out 24/7, and thereby by time co-creating and creating for yourself heaven on earth. And I guess also the opposite could happen. You had this example of the man and the woman arguing whether love or hunger was the necessary, but I imagine that you could also get to know people at a much deeper level, and revealing things about themselves that you never knew about them.
I used to think, Suzanne, that our notion of heaven on earth was buried deep, deep. It's not true. It's just like 1 micron under the surface. And when somebody comes along and asks the 3 heaven on earth questions, and they go, oh, I do know what it is. It is normal. People are doing it. This is much, much more than a good idea. People are doing this all over the world. It might be a good time. Let me give you some examples. A newspaper in Dehradun, India, he called me, we did an interview, and I said, what are you doing for heaven on earth? Well, I don't know. I don't know. I said, anyway, long story short, on the masthead, on the top of the newspaper, in every issue, it says in capital letters, Dehradun, a heaven on earth city, ! So every time people see that newspaper, every time. We have a woman in Portugal who created a heaven on earth website for the 250 million Portuguese speakers around the world. We don't have a Danish. I'd love to see a Danish heaven on earth website.
We have a Facebook site in Danish. Yeah.
You do? Yeah. Yes. What's the Facebook address?
I think it's just called Heaven on Earth in Denmark, as I recall.
Okay. What else? We have a man from Africa who lives in Canada now, who's created a Facebook page called Africa, a heaven on earth continent. We have a police officer in the United States who's created a 16-page manual called Heaven on Earth for Law Enforcement.
Wow.
A real estate agency, which has asked each of their agents to contribute $25 off every sale. It's automatically done.
Mm.
And they build a pot of money, and they bought and furnished a house for a very ill man. And the name of the program is A Home for Everyone.
Mm. Yeah.
So there's tons of examples on the website too.
Yeah.
Look at the stories.
Yeah. Do you have examples of what it's done in families? Families stepping up and co-creating something?
No, I don't. So I asked the people.
I don't want to challenge the viewers to become the first heaven on earth family, to inspire everyone else.
I would, if you decide to do this in your family, and you have some examples of what's happened as a result of asking the 3 questions ongoingly and doing the affirmation every night, or however you do it, please write me, Martin at projectheavenonearth.com, Martin at projectheavenonearth.com, and I'll take a look at it. And if it's really, I think, inspiring, I'd love to do an interview with you and have that be part of my blog post, which goes to 91 countries. So you can affect a lot of people by doing this.
Yeah. So yeah, let's give the listeners this challenge of co-creating something good for families, and how to take us all into heaven on earth in families. That would be
so. It's so important. I mean, imagine that Denmark is known as a country in which families practice and experience and co-create heaven on earth. What a contribution a country of your size can make to the world.
And we also have quite a few teachers and people working with kids, reading the book and being here in the community. And it could be really cool if a teacher out there would take up these 3 questions in that person's classroom and just maybe do that for 12 months and share with us. So where did it bring you?
Fabulous. So we had I think it was a grade 6 teacher in Canada who asked, because of Canada, she had asked permission from the parents. She got permission and the school board. And she asked 1 question of the children, one of the 3 questions each week, and had them work on that. But the idea of doing that over a year, Suzanne, fabulous. A school year, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes, a school year. Fantastic.
Yeah.
That would be a huge contribution, not only to that school and those people, but when I would like to support it. So some of the examples I've been giving you, the more people, these are examples that I know of. I know there are other examples that I don't even know about of people around the world who are doing this.
So this is about creating a ripple effect, as it was the idea originally also with this book, not only to educate children, but at the same time to educate the parents so that they get a common point of reference as to how can we talk about feelings and thoughts and limiting belief systems, and how does it affect my creation in this world. So yeah, it goes very well hand in hand, I think.
I just had a thought. As a parent, what you're concerned with is the legacy that you leave in your children. Imagine if you left a legacy of my child is contributing to co-creating heaven on earth. Imagine if you're a teacher, my classroom, all of us know teachers who've, had a mark on us, a positive mark on us. For me, Mr. Boych, Miss Marshall, Father Tony Ferretto, people who are still with me, are still with me after all of these years, and who I'm always thankful for. And actually, Eli Boych was grade 7 and 8 in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, Memorial Public School. And when he found out about my book and he wrote me, he was so excited. And then he came, I spoke at our high school, that's right. And he came and saw me. I was so excited. I could barely contain myself. And I just acknowledged him, you have no idea what you've meant to me, what you've done for me. And he just was just beaming. So a teacher, a parent has an uncle, an aunt, a grandparent has a huge effect on children.
And in my opinion, I think that the time we're in right now, this is much more important than how well do I speak English or Danish or writing and math and whatever. I mean, it's something is calling from the future. And I think this is a very good step in that direction to activate the full potential of the human mind, because what happens when you ask questions is that if the mind doesn't already know the answer, it starts searching. And it's actually when we become creative, and like Einstein said, everything is an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. So why don't we just create beautiful illusions? And why not heaven on earth?
Listen, and the last thing, I love what you're just saying here, heaven here on earth. Yes, heaven. So when I started doing this work, heaven on earth. So on we know, earth we know. And I began to look at heaven, and most people think that heaven is a place after death, upstairs, God and the angels. Fine. Yeah. But what about here? Where does it say we can't have heaven here? Yeah. That's a really very profound question, because I saw, great suffering in the world. Yeah. And it really disturbed me. I said, well, we don't need to have that here. Our job is not to have that here. Our job is co-creation. One of the other things we say in our evening affirmation is we are experiencing and celebrating the greatness of humanity. We are experiencing and celebrating the greatness of humanity. I want that to be born now too. We know humanity cannot be great. Fine. Let us now check. Exactly. Let us check this new box, the greatness of humanity.
Yeah. I cannot wait to see what we will all co-create, because it is indeed a time of make or break kind of. Where do we go?
What a friend of mine calls it, we're at the fork in the road.
Yeah. That's a good way of saying it.
So just the book. Do you have Amazon in Denmark?
Yes.
So Project Heaven on Earth on Amazon, and also the website projectheavenonearth.com for the free course and for the weekly blog. And just I want to ask you, you have a responsibility as a parent to infuse in your child and your children their greatness, their acting out in a good way, their ability, their power, their sovereignty, their agency to have the kind of world we all long for. That's the era that we're now going into. Yeah. It's time. It's just time on our evolutionary scale to do that. And I know on the surface of the ocean, it doesn't look that way. There's all this turmoil. But remember, the majority of the ocean is underneath the surface, and that's what we're going to.
There are already so many existing solutions out there that would promote heaven on earth, but it's an allowance that we need to give ourselves and each other. And coming back to, so why is it so hard for people to comprehend that heaven on earth is actually a possibility? And I think it comes down to the fact that most people are just carriers of limiting belief systems. And one of them, one of the most basic one is, I'm not loved for being me, and my needs are not important. And if those two are just dominant in our system, then we have to postpone the good stuff because my need is not important right now. So it's about, breaking that down and installing a new story of heaven is real on earth, and I'm creating it.
I would add one other belief to that, the fundamental belief that this is not heaven and it can never be.
Yeah.
And I want to smash that one. I want to just dissolve that one so that we can begin to see, oh, it really is.
It is everywhere already. Yeah. And it's just, our mind is such a powerful tool, and it always, like, it's our survival mechanism. It looks for things that could go wrong. That's basically the job description of our brain, right? So we have to take over the power of our brain and teach it to look for the good stuff, because it's all also there.
That's a lovely way to say it, Suzanne. Yeah, that is our job now. I've been seeing that in the last couple of weeks. I've been seeing that more and more. I see the craziness of the mind here, the hamster wheel.
Yes.
And then to step out of that and go, okay, what are you here for? What are we here for? A friend of mine years ago said, what is the purpose of humanity? I thought that was an amazing question. And my answer is, we're here to experience and co-create more heaven on earth.
Yeah, that is my number one passion. Having done the passion test, so I totally agree with you. I was just curious as to see if someone put in questions.
Yes, I was going to ask that too.
So I'm just going to look that up if there's anyone. Since I don't have a shared screen here, I have to see if anyone is online with us asking questions.
So I'll just hold the book up while you're doing that.
Yeah.
The book is called Project Heaven on Earth.
It is.
But it's also called, is my ring light in the way? There you go.
Yeah.
The title is, look, the title here is Project. Oh, that's good. I can use the light. But the title is also Project. So Project Heaven on Earth or Project Heaven on Earth. Yes. Do we have a question?
We don't have questions. We do have people there, but if you guys or women it is have any questions for Martin, now would be a really good time to ask them.
I would love it.
You can ask them in Danish if you're not comfortable with writing in English.
For sure.
Yeah. So
let me, while we're waiting for that, I'm trying to think of some other examples. Oh, I have an example. So I was doing this webinar, this woman comes on, she talks about violence against women. You can't believe the violence against women in my county. I've been to the police, I've been to the government, nothing. What would you do? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't know this. I don't know your situation. I don't know your financial situation. You could donate $5,000. You could donate 1 cent, 1 penny. But what difference would a penny make? And one of the other women on the call said, wait a minute. What if everybody in your county donated 1 penny a day to help end violence against women? And she went, oh my God, they created a little jar like this, oops, with a picture of a woman, half her face beaten up, bruised, half her face bright, alive. And they called it Making Change. Because in English, I don't know if this translates into Danish. It does. So making change means we're changing things, but also making change is you take a bill and break it down to smaller coins.
Yeah.
So they raised $2,500, her county and the next county over, and they took that, this is in Canada, they took it to the federal government in Ottawa, and there's a group there called the Status of Women who gave them $100,000 for each of the subsequent 3 years, $300,000 from 1 penny.
Yeah.
The point, and I talked earlier about the woman smiling at 2 people every day. You have no idea the ripple effect of any small action that you take. You don't know, but you just keep doing it and 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 watch what happens.
And the same goes for, when you export your inner desperation, you could start exporting your love and kindness and just see what would unravel in doing so. That would be
it's exciting to me to see how this idea that I had some 30 years ago, oh, you mean heaven on earth, and what's unfolded all around the world from that one little idea. I mean, even as I said, even I at the beginning thought, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh yeah, why not?
Yeah. I love that purpose of yours. And I'm sure it will inspire so many people, not only now, but also in the future, to really, co-create heaven on earth, because it is a possibility.
It's an idea whose time has come.
Yes, indeed it has. And yeah, so blow your mind with that idea and go do it. So we don't have any questions in here, but we do have people watching, so that's nice. We love that. And should you have any burning questions listening to the replay, send it and maybe we can answer it, maybe we can't, but it was just really, really love you have you here, Martin. I loved seeing you again.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you for our, I mean, we were connected from the first moment.
We
an
were
old relationship. Yeah.
We had a common goal in life. We surely. So thank you.
Thank you.
And people go and watch Martin's website, projectheavenonearth.com, and download resources, courses, join his blog or newsletter. And if you haven't yet bought the book for your kids to make them really good at co-creating heaven on earth, it's also a possibility.
Say the title of the book.
Sia Den magiske sten. Sia and the magical stone. Yeah. So thank you for being here, Martin. Let's hope we won't wait another 5 years before joining forces again.
Amen. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you for being here, and have fun out there. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.